Mtazamaji, asante sana kwa kuendelea kutazama runinga ya TV47. Upo na mimi Emmanuel Terer, na bila wasiwasi wote ule tunasikiliza gurudumu hili kuhusiana na masuala ya magazeti. Lakini tuanze moja kwa moja na gazeti la The People Daily. Katika ukurasa wa kwanza ni kupatia taswira kamili kuhusiana na nini haswa inaendelea katika gazeti hilo The People Daily. Makanisa, churches suspend weddings na funerals. Inahakikisha kwamba kama kungekuwepo na harusi, bila shaka serikali ndo imepuuzilia mbali. Si serikali, lakini makanisa yamesema kwamba hayatakuwepo na harusi na vile maziko ama mazishi. Vile tuende katika ukurasa wa pili sasa, na pili na tatu. Uhuru creates fresh team to restore city in the sun. Jiji la Nairobi, jana unasikiza kwamba Generali Mohamed Abdallah Badi ndio anachukua usukani wa kuwa sheriff katika jiji la Nairobi sasa hivi. Inamaanisha kwamba hali iko namna gani katika jiji la Nairobi? Philip Mwangale na vile Mike leo watakuwepo, tuangalie wote kwa pamoja hali namna gani katika jiji la Nairobi. Katika ukurasa huo wa tatu, epidemics that shocked the world. Ukitaka kujisomea vile kufahamu kuhusiana na yale majanga ambayo yalijitokeza katika ardhi ya Mwenyezi Mungu tangu tuzaliwe miaka ile, utapata kufahamu katika ukurasa huo wa The People Daily, ukurasa wa tatu. Vile katika ukurasa wa tatu na mimi ndo hivyo hali. Katika ukurasa huu wa 4 na 5 inasema kwamba essential services not affected, providers try to comply with rules. Ni katika ukurasa huu wa 3 tutajisomea kuhusiana na corona. Churches, mosque shut as weddings put on hold. Ni katika ukurasa huo. Vile katika ukurasa wa 5, MPs self-isolate after contact with fourth COVID-19 patient. Ukitaka sana kujisomea kuhusiana na hili, gynecologists in the country now say pregnant women should be considered as coronavirus risk population. Kwamba kina mama ambao ni wajawazito wasemekana kwamba ndio wako katika hatari zaidi kuambukizwa kirusi hiki cha corona. Lakini state tracking 85 through thought to have met with patient. Yule kuna mwadhiriwa mmoja ambaye alitoroka katika hospitali ya Mbagathi. Mpenzi macha mpatie taswira kamili hapa. Hali namna gani iko sawa hapo mwenyewe. State tracking 85 thought to have met with patient. Ni yule mmoja ambaye alikuwepo katika maeneo ya Mbagathi hospitali ile. Lakini vile tupate kuelewa kuna nini katika ukurasa wa 8 na 9. Virus locks 850 million students out of class, UNESCO announces. Ni katika masuala haya. Vile katika ukurasa wa 5, counties step up corona preparedness. Ni katika ukurasa huo, cha kupatia taswira kamili ndio hivyo. Ujione mwenyewe hali namna gani katika gazeti hilo The People Daily. Tusonge mbele katika ukurasa ufuatao. Kipakatilishi changu kinakwama kidogo, lakini nataka kupatia taswira kamili. Lakini kwa ukurasa huo, social distancing in Mukuru, go tell it to the birds. Naamini kama kuna watu waliarifiwa kwamba wakwepe sana. Acha nikuletee taswira. Social distancing in Mukuru, go to tell it to the birds. Acha nikupatie taswira pole hivyo. Slums residents say that they won't. Acha nikupatie hivi ndio wewe mwenyewe uelewe kuna nini katika gazeti hili la The People Daily. Acha nikupatie iko sawa. Mbona inanikanganya? Lakini social distancing in Mukuru, go to tell it to the birds. Watu wa Mukuru wamekataa. Lakini katika ukurasa huo, political activity shrinks as BBI team insist agenda on course. Ni katika ukurasa huo wa 13 12. Lakini acha tuangalie tena katika ukurasa ufuatao kisha baadaye. COG wants government to equip hospitals. Ni katika ukurasa huo, acha nikupatie. COG wants government to equip hospitals for testing, ni katika ukurasa wa 15 14. Ni hali namna gani kuhusiana na hili mpenzi mtazamaji? Katika ukurasa huo wa 16-18, CBK cushions borrowers from vagaries of scourge. Ni katika ukurasa huo wa 16-17. Mpenzi mtazamaji, utajisomea we mwenyewe kuhakikisha kwamba ndo hali namna gani asubuhi ya leo kutumia gazeti la The People Daily. Lakini katika magazeti mengine sasa tuangalie katika gazeti la The Star. Katika gazeti hili The Star ukurasa wa kwanza, Corona cabinet to discuss lockdown as job losses loom. Na mimi ndio taswira ilivyo katika ukurasa huo wa kwanza gazeti la The Star. Katika ukurasa mwingine katika gazeti lingine vile vile, coronavirus how to rescue the economy. Ni katika gazeti hili la The Daily Nation. Mpenzi mtazamaji, hali ilivyo katika ukurasa wa kwanza katika gazeti hilo, coronavirus how to rescue the economy. Nataka kuomba The Standard vile vile upate taswira kamili. Mr. President, Kenyans want more money. Ni katika ukurasa wa kwanza gazeti la The Standard. Mpenzi mtazamaji, siko peke yangu studioni leo, niko na Mike na vile vile huyu mkubwa ananiambia kitu kimoja kwamba alipokwenda kinyozi akagundua kwamba angenyoa kipara ile shepu ya kichwa chake kingekwenda mbange. Lakini Philip karibu sana bwana. Ijapokuwa najua sisi sote katika taifa la Kenya tupo katika hatari ya kuambukizwa kirusi cha corona.
Naam.
Hii taarifa inapokwenda ikoje kwako? Namna gani haswa? Kabla tuingie katika kurasa tofauti ya magazeti.
Kwanza ni mahali ambapo tumefika kama ulimwengu na si kama taifa tu, ni mahali hatari, kwamba kuna ugonjwa ambao tunaweza kuupata sisi wote. Kwa hivyo ni kama jinamizi kwetu. Lakini tunamshukuru Mungu kwa sababu haimaanishi kwamba ulimwengu wote utaangamia.
So you really say we are not going to die?
No, we will not die. This is not the end of civilization. Yes, I am convicted more than ever that we will go through this. We might have casualties as we've had across the world, but we will overcome.
Okay.
We shall overcome.
That's word of hope. Mike.
Asante sana.
Karibu sana.
Bwana Terer. Hii ugonjwa ya COVID-19.
So what do you think, are we going to overcome?
We are going to overcome. Humanity is very resilient throughout history. Watu wamepambana na magonjwa hata kali kuliko hii. Kuna wakati hata syphilis ilikuwa inaua kila mtu kwa sababu hatukuwa na dawa yake.
Na awareness pia.
But along the way, medicines were discovered. Wacha niseme kitu hivi, ni vizuri tupatie humanity hope. Of all the infections that have happened, only 4% have died, which means people are recovering and going back home.
At the end of the day, there is the hope at the end of the tunnel.
All those who are infected, if you do the calculation, only 4% have died, which means 96% have recovered or on the way
to
recovery. They are going home. So humanity should not lose hope. Na ni vizuri tueneze hii ujumbe kabisa, injili ya kuwa na imani ya kwamba yote yatakuwa mzuri na watu wapambane na hii hali vizuri. People should not panic. Mimi husema hivi, many times people die out of phobia and panic and fear and paranoia. When you get scared so much, you overreact. And that does more damage than accepting that this is the reality. We already have it.
But there are a lot of rumors. People are spreading that you have these symptoms. You might be suffering from coronavirus. If you are in this loom of I have these symptoms, what are you supposed to do? Maybe someone is watching and they are hoping that from Mike, I want to hear him talk about I don't want to panic.
Listen, thank you, Emmanuel. You know, we have a pandemic, but more dangerous is the infodemic. There is too much information. A lot of it is very inaccurate. All these sources now, ukienda social media, kila mtu akona advice yake. Kila mtu, ukienda Facebook, kila mtu akona advice. WhatsApp, Twitter, kila mtu. But there is only one way forward. If you have these symptoms, get yourself tested. That's all. If you test positive, seek medication. Don't commit suicide. Because people are recovering from this thing. Okay. The difference between COVID-19 and, let's say, diabetes is that COVID-19 is treatable. Okay. And it can be gotten out of your system.
There is a lot of hope.
So you don't have
to panic at all times. You wait upon. But
yes.
Are we really prepared as the country?
I said this here way before the first case of COVID-19 got into the country. And my sentiments then were that we were not as prepared as we ought to have been as a country. But right now we should not talk of preparation because it's already here with us.
But still,
what we need to be talking about is how we are managing the situation.
Yes.
And I think the government has done quite a lot in trying to manage the situation. But I still insist that there is a lot more that we are able to do as a country, especially given the fact that we have the resources to do more. If we are comfortable with the fact that the isolation centers that have been set up across the country are enough, then we are on the wrong side of managing this situation. Because countries that have the capacity in the healthcare systems, countries like the US, Italy, and such countries, they are facing the brunt because whatever they have is not even enough for them. So we have had very little, yet we are saying this is enough for us. The fact that we only have, yesterday I had information from the government that we only have 2 labs that can test for the virus. I think that we are way behind time, way behind the virus, way behind
There's someone
spread.
who should at least raise the game, because at the end of the day, people are going to die.
Yes.
So the government should at least try its best, but I guess it's trying.
Yes.
The United States plans to spend $100 trillion to rescue its economy. Yeah. Yesterday, the CBK boss cautions borrowers from vagaries of Scotch kwa kusema kwamba you need to at least lower down. If you have given you a loan, you need to wait, yes, as a bank, for me to first of all get healed or to do away with the COVID, and then we go back pay our loans.
Yes.
So what do you think, are we headed for the right direction, or were we messing up?
I think that is the right direction to go. Only that I still insist that we need to do more. We should not wait for an economic collapse for us to put in place mitigating action. We should plan for eventualities, because we are lucky as a continent, and not just as a country, that this has come after other countries have already experienced what they have experienced. So we have many lessons to gather from other countries. So we should put stopgap measures in place at this moment. And it's not just the banking sector that is affected. Normally, there are contracts, people get into contracts most of the time. And a pandemic like this, now that the WHO has classified it as a pandemic, in law, it qualifies as what we call a force majeure. A force majeure is an act or an event that cannot be prevented and makes the performance of contracts impossible. So there are contracts whose performance will be made impossible just by
because of COVID.
Yes. So the country and the government needs also to scale it down to the common mwananchi, so that people should know that in case you are incapable of performing a certain contract or a certain obligation to whoever because of this virus, because of this scourge, then that can be understood in law. So the government needs to scale down, not just granting moratorium on loans and all those things, but scale it down to what happens in reality. I mean, if you fail to pay rent because you're not going to work, what then happens? We need to scale it down to the reality of life in this country.
People in places like Kayole, the Mukuru Kwanjenga, if you read the papers right now, you realize they're saying we don't buy that because the places are crowded. Is there any measure that you think the government should take to curb the situation in places like Kayole, like Kibera, like Mukuru Kwanjenga?
One, first let me say this. Kwanza wacha nianze hivi. What Dr. Patrick Njoroge said yesterday is good, but not good enough, because we do not. What percentage of this population has bank loans?
Yes,
a very small percentage. And yet COVID is a real threat to everybody, for the 50 million Kenyans. So what Njoroge did yesterday was good, but not good enough. Government needs to institute comprehensive and wide-ranging steps to address our plight. But let me go back to your question now. Mukuru Kwanjenga, Kayole,
Kibera,
and
the slums.
the informal settlements. The coronavirus, the COVID-19, has taken us back to the most basic public health lessons and personal hygiene lessons which we were taught when we were kids. Unakumbuka wakati ulikuwa mtoto ukienda kucheza,
ukirudi nao
mzazi alikuwa very strict, nawa mkono ndio ukae penye watu wako, usiguze mdomo, usiguze macho, usiguze masikio, because that is how you get
infected.
Eye infection, stomachache, ear infection, all those things. So we are back to the basics. Now, before even government gets to Kayole or before government gets to Mukuru Kwanjenga or anywhere else, it's important that wananchi wao wenyewe warudi kwa basic public health lessons and personal hygiene lessons. It all begins with.
But how do we avoid overcrowded places, and yet you know very well the slums where you going through barabara yenyewe watu kumejaa?
It is not. They are not living there because they want to live there. That is the first situation. So we have to deal with it as it is. We do not have adequate housing for our population here in Nairobi to begin with. And people go to the slums because that is what they afford. That is what they can afford. If they could afford something better, they could be living elsewhere. So now that they are where they are, and now that this disease has come and we are where we are now, we need to handle it within the environment in which they are living.
Okay. Yeah. Are we failing? Look at the health sector, the transport sector. The government is as if we are now unraveling the weaknesses of the government, Philip.
Just to add on what Mike has said concerning our informal settlements, and this is the unfortunate bit, that Kenya is badly placed because of what we are. I mean, the way we carry out business, the way we live, predisposes us to the spread of quick spread of the virus. Because if you look at informal settlements, and just the other day there was a report that I came across that was looking at the way water is distributed and spread across this informal settlement. So if you require people to wash their hands, then they would rather use the water to cook than wash their hands.
Definitely, because that is the way we are going to survive.
And I think one of the positive things that we should take from this corona thing is it should knock us back to our senses, because what it is pointing us to is the weaknesses in our governance systems, the weaknesses in the way we do life, and so the situation in the slum areas and other informal settlements will prove a challenge to what the government is trying to achieve and what we are trying to achieve as a country, and that is minimize spread of the virus. But we pray, and at this point we should direct all our hope to God. Because where we are, if we are to depend on our systems that have failed us perennially, then we will not overcome.
Telling someone who is at the slums. Okay, finish your statement.
That is our ultimate hope. And I think after we have done all that we can, all that we scientifically can, all that we logically can, the only hope that we have left is God. And it should not be that we have the hope left. That should be our first port of call. That we are calling on God, then these other things follow.
Telling someone who is living in the slums that you need to wash your hands regularly, I would rather think it's a torture kind of, because if I tell you to do something using a certain resource that is not there, what am I expecting to see back? Mike, this is a way that I think government should step up and work hard towards seeing these people, they are not affected in any way by the coronavirus.
I agree, but first, good health first begins with you. Whether you live in the slums or you live in any other environment, when you are called upon to wash your hands as frequently as possible, it's important you appreciate ni maisha yako. Tunajaribu kukusaidia kuokoa maisha yako. Because we need you alive. We don't need you when you are dead. This society is only needs you when you are alive. When you are dead, you are of no use to the society. Kwa hivyo, water is a scarce commodity in life. Okay, there are those there's a percentage of...
But it's in the failure of government.
Of course. Government has failed in many things. First of all, in provision of clean water. Even our education system is not doing well. Even our health system is not doing well. Even security, we are living in very insecure environments. So this is just one of the fields where government has not lived up to expectations. Lakini now we are talking about a matter of life and death. Tuanze at a personal level with personal hygiene and public health. Let's deal with it first before we proceed forward. Remember, I remember when there was a cholera outbreak,
yes.
And
everyone was worried.
Everyone was worried, and I think that was late 70s. It began, people had to start digging toilets in their homes. Before that, people never used to take it seriously. But people had to start.
So this is a lesson for us to at least step up our game. There's a question that I would want to ask Philip.
Yes.
When we say the opposition should act as an eye that watches the government, I guess it was true that it should have stayed as an opposition. But because the opposition is now swallowed by the government, we are watching the country sink into the COVID-19. Because check the transportation sector. I guess 5 years ago, the President Uhuru Kenyatta launched, you have to pay your money or the transport fare using your phone. But now, what happened to this? It failed because there is no opposition to watch the government.
Yes. I think, and this point, as I've mentioned before, what we are facing now will point to cracks in our governance systems. It will point to lacunas and gaps in leadership. The fact that we do not have people who are putting the government to check. We only have a government that is self-regulating. And, right now we are in the period of self-quarantine. So self-regulation seems to
have taken stage.
Yes, to have taken stage. But what we need to have is people who will question government steps, including the things that government is putting in place to curb the spread of the virus. Because there are some things that might not be sustainable. There are some things that might not be logical. There are some things that might not work to the best interest of Mwananchi. So it is important that we have people who keep the government in check, including the looming lockdown that we are talking about.
Yes, because talking of the lockdown, you realize the MPs are really on the verge of going for lockdown. If lockdown happens, what will happen to Kenyans who are working? You had, Mike, you have a point.
I want to say something to add on to what my brother Philip has just said. On whether the opposition is dead or alive, or whether now there is nobody to put the government in check, I want to say this. Kenyans voted in 2017 for 2 houses of parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate. And what are the roles of a parliamentarian? One is oversight, representation, and legislation. If something is wrong in the system, it doesn't matter whether it is your party that is in power or not. It's upon you as a representative of the people to speak up for the people. Because governments can be very ruthless. And if you keep quiet because it's your party that is in power and your people are being crushed, then you're failing your people, the people who voted for you. So whether the opposition, the so-called opposition, was absorbed or swallowed, using your words, I don't know how they were swallowed. That throat must have been very big that can swallow an entire opposition. On a serious note, members of parliament, both houses of parliament, should play their role of oversighting, representation, and legislation. And there should be no excuse.
The parliament is failing, but
they're
watching on a lockdown. What happens to us if we go on lockdown, Philip?
This is the situation. You know, countries that have had entire cities locked down, including China, countries whose economies can sustain such lockdowns. If you lock down this city, for example, you will be staring at a disaster. Perhaps worse than the spread of the virus. I agree it is important for us to arrest this issue as soon as possible, but we need to think it through. We should not just do it because other countries have had lockdowns and it has worked for them. We need to look at what will work and what will be the resulting effects, what will be the sprawling effects from locking an entire city down or locking counties down. Though I cannot put it past government to make such a decision. I think it's something they are capable of doing even without thinking it through. But I think we need, and this is something that they should be discussing right now. They should be engaging stakeholders across the country to find out what should happen, because there was a rumor, and I treat it as a rumor because it has not been released officially, that in case that happens, then there will be clusters that will be formed across the city and wherever that lockdown will be happening, so that you will not be allowed to leave a certain area to go shop. You know, like Kenyans have the habit of doing. You can leave Rongai, come to shop in town, or leave Kiambu to come and shop in town. So if those clusters are created, that could help. But again, you must look at it holistically. The way we shop, the way we live.
It's because of our classes.
Yes, exactly, the classes. Those who will stand cushioned are those who live in gated communities and posh places. Those ones will stand cushioned. But those and especially those that live in the informal sector. So the government should really think this through. Look at what happens in terms of the supply chain. How do people get food? Are you going to ensure that those clusters that you're creating, or whatever environment that you'll be locking down, will get adequate food? Will you provide the food, or what methods will you actually use to cushion people from the disasters of a lockdown?
Mike, you have a point. I know you have your own point, but I want to ask this question: if the lockdown happens, for how long are we going to be in lockdown? And I know some of the issues that are going to pop up is the first. Where do we get the food?
Good. I have a big problem with this concept of lockdowns in a copy-paste system. The French have done it. The Spanish can do it. The Chinese can do it. But you know what? They have the addresses of their citizens. They know where to get you and deliver food to you at doorstep. In this country, we don't even know where people live. We cannot even access them. Even if there is a fire outbreak today in Kibra, fire engines can't go there.
Because of bad roads? And we still blame the government.
The infrastructure, the planning is not there. So when you when you implement a lockdown, who will feed these fellows? That is one. Two, in this economy, we know that the majority of the citizens of Kenya live on less than $1 a day. Meaning, they have to go out to work or to go out to look for work daily, because that's what they'll eat.
Yes. Is it effective if we work from home?
People will defy because people will die.
So it might not work because telling someone for instance, Emmanuel Terret to work from home, where is the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, things like those. And what percentage of the population can actually work from home? Because we have about just 10 to 15% of the population that have what we call white-collar jobs. The rest is actually informal. And this is the point. We are largely an informal sector country. Everything is informal. We have informal settlements. We have informal jobs. And sometimes we have an informal system of governance, or informal leadership. So if you're talking about people working from home, we appreciate that that is something that could work. I mean, we have to do all we can to prevent spread of the virus, because we need to arrest it as where it is. But then we must look at it pragmatically. Will it work? And for how many people will it work for? Those that are now at home, because there are those who are not going to work. Hotels are closed down. All those businesses are closed down.
I know people who are working in clubs also will not have jobs.
So they cannot work. But those that are able to work, can they really work from home? That is what the government should be addressing. Question. I mean, if we get to a point where we will not need to travel, and this is something that I'm suspecting government could do, restrict travel from Nairobi elsewhere. And that could have a semblance of reason, because the counties have no capacity to handle anything close to what other countries are handling, or close to what is being handled right now in the cities. If we get the number of infections that we have currently, just 7, the government says it's 7. If we get 7 in some of these counties, it will be disaster going forward. So I think that will be a good thing to do, but we need to increase our diagnostic capacity. And these are lessons that we can pick from other countries. Recently, just 2 days ago, South Korea was on the spotlight for having reduced their infection rates, and this is the lesson they were giving to the rest of the world, that it is important to test more than what we are doing right now, screening. Screening is actually not testing. I know there are virologists, there are medical experts who can dig deeper into screening and testing. But this is my logical understanding, that when you're doing screening, you're not actually confirming that this person has no virus or not. You're just actually clearing them of some of the common symptoms, which include fever. So if I'm screened now, and perhaps maybe I've taken Panadol and my fever has gone down, yet I'm still exhibiting some of those symptoms, I might go on and infect Mike here. So I think we need to borrow some of these lessons that South Korea is having, that countries like Cuba are carrying on, that we need to test, and we cannot do this testing with just 2 labs working. The government needs to certify other labs across the country. Just this morning, early morning, I was listening to a press conference, a press statement by Donald Trump, and what they have done is they have certified even commercial labs. I think something that the government needs to borrow from. That you have labs, you have private entities that have the capacity to help in fighting this. So certify these labs, commission them to conduct these tests, and make sure that the capacity that Mutahi Kagwe is talking about here in Nairobi is spread across the country.
How firm is this to the counties? When you talk about now spreading the information, that you give them a chance to also curb the situation as a county, do you think the counties are really prepared?
Our counties don't have the capacity to handle a pandemic of this nature.
So meaning someone who is a Koshago, akikutana nayo, it might be a big threat.
Let me say this, Emmanuel. As a country, we have been taking our medical sector very lightly, for granted for a very long time. Remember, the health docket is fully devolved in the Constitution of Kenya 2010, but that is on paper. In practice, 90% of the money remains in Afya House here, because this is where the big tenders are. You know, health has big tenders, so even the Nairobi wants to procure medical equipment for the counties from here, which should not even be happening. Now, in every, hardly a month goes before you hear of doctors on strike or nurses on strike or lab technicians on strike, because the county governments are not handling them well.
Even Bagade, the first time nurses were on go slow.
Yes.
Now, there's this video.
Let me just finish this thing about the health thing. When doctors are not on strike, there are no drugs in hospitals. When doctors are not on strike and drugs are in hospital, the medical supplies, the other chain is not there. So we have a problem here with our medical infrastructure in this country, and we need to fix it mapema. Otherwise, people will die here like hell.
Alongside your statement, Alfred Mutua, the governor, said that, I guess this is a wake-up call for us. If you find that you're not traveling abroad because you're the leader, we're all going to die. So we rather, I guess, following or hearing what he said, it means the government should at least, even if it will be 70%, trying to see the sector, the health sector improving. So if you watch the leaders today, is there anything that you can't see as a wake-up call following the COVID-19?
There are very few leaders, and now that you mention Mutua, governor, I think the only governor that I have seen proactive and pragmatic in sorting out this, not just this issue, but health issues in his county is Governor Oparanya, the Kakamega County governor. And if you look, if you look at the measures that his county government has taken to prepare. It's very different from a country that is just close, Trans Nzoia County, that I've just seen something on the Star here saying that they have used 10 million to procure protective equipment and stuff like that, and the only isolation center they have is at some doctor's plaza in the county. So the county is not investing in its capacity in the healthcare system, but that is besides the point. Any society is judged by how they respond to calamities and issues that they have not prepared for. The way we respond to calamity, the way we respond to adversity points to who we are and what our aspirations are as a country. I'll give an example of Cuba. In the early 80s, Cuba before then, Cuba had been sidelined by the United States and basically by most of the Western powers. But Cuba was faced with dengue fever in the early 80s. And this is what Fidel Castro did at that point. He commissioned scientists to come up with solutions. And at that time, they came up with there was a drug called interferon, protein-centered drug. Homegrown. It was a homegrown solution that helped them solve dengue fever in the early 80s. Later, when they faced the meningitis scourge, they themselves, without seeking help from Cuba, they managed to stem whatever was facing them at that point. And it is no surprise that we at one point faced Cuba for doctors, because their healthcare system is tip-top shape. You cannot compare the healthcare system with many of these countries. So how we respond to this calamity, how we respond to this pandemic, shows where we want to go as a country.
So meaning in our country, we need to also try to give a chance to those people who are trying to come up with the solution of a cure. If someone is coming up and saying, I want to do this, I want to maybe invent a cure, let that person be given a chance. But there's a question before we go for a break. There's someone called Ibrahim Bwana. I don't know, but I want to ask if maybe you've heard this. He's asking the question, I heard that the countries affected by the virus will receive $1 billion from the UN, and China wants to take over the port of Mombasa because we haven't paid our debts. How true is this information? That's the question from Ibrahim Bwana. Maybe we can try to see this if they say any truth with this statement?
I don't know the connection between the $1 billion from the UN and the port of Mombasa and the Chinese. Not unless he is suggesting that the Chinese are waiting for the money to come, then they take it. Well, let me give you my take on the SGR. The entire document, the contractual agreement between Kenya and China regarding the SGR was never made public. So it is very difficult to understand what was in the small print of that agreement and that contract. So I wouldn't be very quick to comment on something that I'm not very well versed with. That is one. Now, regarding the money from the UN, if at all it were to come, it should come to improve the infrastructure and to enhance the capacity of our medical infrastructure here in Kenya. Training of doctors, equipping the hospitals. You can see yesterday is a story in the Standard. The medical personnel refused to treat people. Actually, they stayed away from work because they did not have protective gear and sanitizers. These are the things that money should be used for.
Not someone to pocket the money.
Not someone to pocket the money. It would be very unfortunate if people are targeting this money in order to pocket the money. It would be very, very unfortunate. Money should be used to enhance the capacity of our hospitals and of our doctors so that we can at least use it to serve the people of Kenya. Because the danger is real.
Okay.
Just one thing that I should mention. Now that that points to a possible scam. You know, we can sanitize our hands and our bodies all we can, but we cannot sanitize away our bad manners.
Yes.
That is something that we need to get at the back of our minds, or perhaps at the front of our minds, that we can only change if we decide to change. Because I can bet you 100% that there is somebody somewhere who has pocketed some money that is meant for
treatment
for handling this scourge. I am 100% sure that somebody somewhere has pocketed some money at the national level or at the county level.
Even if you see someone selling bidhaa in their shops, you realize they hike the prices.
You can imagine. We have a tendency as a country to maximize on suffering, to maximize, and that is for personal gain and for profit. So we need to decide that we need to change our manners. We might handle the COVID-19 virus, but after that, what happens?
Yes.
If we prevent spread and treat people after they're treated, what happens?
That is the question. Penzi mtazamaji, asante sana kwa kuendelea kutazama runinga TV47. Upo na mimi Emmanuel Terero Wachanganuzi, Philip vile vile Mike. Tunazungumzia pakubwa kuhusiana na masuala haya ya corona kwa sasa. Lakini mpenzi mtazamaji, changia. Kuna swali moja nimeuliza leo, tangu serikali itangaze kwamba tusipeleke mikono yetu kwa uso, unajikuta kwamba unamwasha uso. Tuende katika mapumziko. Asante sana kwa kusalia nasi. Tunachanganua masuala ya magazeti ya asubuhi ya leo, na bila shaka kuna jina tunatatiza hapa. Litswa.
The most important thing is how you write it. Pronunciation does not matter.
Okay.
Where you come from.
So can we go with Cyrus instead? Because Litswa is...
No, as long as you come and write it down nicely.
It will go well. So the county government of Nairobi is giving out some positions. Like there's someone called General Abdallah Badi.
Yes.
So let me begin with you because I know umekuwa mnanyamaza sana huko launch. So the biggest question I want to ask is...
Just be honest with him. Tell him because he was late.
Oh,
no.
Okay. No, but he said...
I was there.
Okay.
I was just watching you guys.
Now, Air Force General to run key city functions.
Yes.
What are we expecting? Is the government taking Nairobi County to be its own
One thing I can say from all this is like the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, has that belief in the military guys around him and working. He believes in their efforts, and I believe he knows why. And then Nairobi County, let me say, they are trying to look at, you see, there has been this debate for a very long time that Nairobi County should be a metropolitan city where the leader of Nairobi County is not elected by the residents of Nairobi, but
appointed by the government.
Appointed by the government of the day. But you see, also, Nairobi, as any other county, and my question has always been, should the same happen to Mombasa, which is also a city? Should the same happen to Kisumu, which is also a city? Because one day, one time...
Why are you leaving Eldoret?
Also Eldoret, because all they have...
Eldoret is not a city.
It is. It is a city, no, in one way or the other. It's a big town that is growing to be a city.
I guess that's because I come from that place, you don't want to make it a city.
Mike thinks it's a shopping center.
Anyway,
okay,
you see, I have always questioned myself, will it come to a time and say now, because now Mombasa has grown so big in its area of becoming somewhere like Nairobi, will it now be, will we have an appointee and not a government
someone who is
elected you see, people. We believe, every individual believes in an elected leader, whereby he has participated in electing that leader. Because one, this leader will be accountable to the people. And whereby a person is appointed, it becomes a problem. There are so many parastatals in this country that need to be, the persons are supposed to be appointed, but you see they are in acting capacity. For example, the Political Parties Act, you see, office at Lions Place. The first person to be in charge of that office was on acting capacity till she left the office. The person currently, she's also on acting capacity. Now, what if the same scenario may happen to the city in some years to come? If now the debate of taking the city to be a metropolitan, now president or the government has powers to appoint someone. Look at the Auditor General office. There are no services from there because one, we have not up to now, since Ouko left the office last year, August, the Auditor General has not been appointed.
But according to people, most of the Kenyans think that the government might be looking for someone who will lean on their side to go to the office of that Ouko left.
Very true, because they need someone they can compromise with. Someone who will not be tough with them. Someone who will be soft with them. Because Ouko was a tough man. He never feared anyone. So these are some of the things that we are looking at having, the problems we are looking at having in Nairobi. I was reading in The Nation this morning what we expect from the metropolitan city. Working together with NYS. Fine, it's a good thing, but do we need to go in that direction?
Let me ask Mike.
Let me say something. Asante sana. For joining us in this debate.
But I realized you have a very close tie.
Yes.
Okay.
He's my personal buddy. Very good, great friend of mine.
Nice.
Now, let me say this. Two things. One, you know, Winston Churchill said a long time ago that if you want to know the folly of democracy, just spend 5 minutes and talking to a voter, and you'll realize the folly of democracy. It can give you very strangeness. It has just given us Songo here in Nairobi. But that's one thing. Two, I think the Constitution of Kenya 2010 gave us devolution or devolved governments, but we did not think through how to implement devolution well. So we still have structural problems with devolution, not only in Nairobi, but even in Meru, in Eldoret, everywhere. It's only that these things have not come up. There are challenges of accountability. in a big way in our county.
I must begin by saying this. Whatever happened, the transaction that happened between
the county
Sonko and the national government was illegal, in my opinion. The fact that it has been carried on to this point does not make it any legal. But we have a culture of now that we're in the period of sanitizing, we have a culture of sanitizing impunity. We have a culture of sanitizing bad governance and all these things. So it's like we started sanitization kitambo sana. But this is the point. The Constitution says this, that it is only those functions that would otherwise be performed better by the national government that should be transferred. So the initial question that we should have asked is this. Is it that these functions are being moved to the national government because the national government can perform them better, or is it because we do not have leadership in Nairobi County government? And the answer is this, that the reason why Nairobi County and Nairobi City is where it is because of, it is not even poor leadership, a lack of leadership. And you cannot solve that by transferring function. You need to get leadership in Nairobi County government. But now that we are where we are, we must face reality. We are where we are. I see the star saying the new sheriff in town. And I think the first alarm bell should have gone off when there was the Nairobi Metropolitan Committee, or the Nairobi Metropolitan Service that was set up way before even the transfer of these functions. That should have, the alarm bell should have gone off at that point. Because then it looked as though there was a duplicity of functions. There's a team that is receiving payment salaries to work on the city, and there's also a county government that is fully functional. But now that we are where we are, we need to look at what needs to happen next, because it does not look like we are going to stop what has already begun. The president has given instructions to the team to make sure that it has rooted out cartels, it has solved Nairobi City's problems within the next 100 days. That is a pipe dream. That cannot happen in 100 days. The problems of Nairobi County, Nairobi City have been compounded over the years. It has taken decades to get where we are, and it will take us time to get out of the garbage that we have dug ourselves into. But I probably should have some hope in the general,
at least,
given the fact that the military has individuals with a high discipline ability. They are very disciplined. I probably should have some hope that he will do something, but he's going to face a lot of opposition from politicians who have had a stake within the city. And I cannot put it past the people who have made sure this has happened, that they also want a stake in the wealth that is Nairobi
so definitely, according to your statements, you did mention something, but I want to ask Litswa, do you think his coming in, that's the general, itasaidia? There are cartels who are said to be in corruption.
Cartels, even, I want to concur with him. The cartels that they talk about, they are the same leaders. Who are the cartels? True, even Sonko came in saying that he wants to fight the cartels. Something funny, he seems to be the same cartel. Because if you are saying you want to fight cartel, then how did you get yourself in the mix of being vindicated that you received money in corruption manners? So he's also a cartel.
What he meant, Cyrus, was he wants to replace
now
the cartel.
Another thing is
so
he wants
the statement from Philip is kind of replacement of cartel.
Yes, it's just a matter of replacement of cartels. There's nothing like fighting cartels, but it's this replacement of cartels and protecting cartels. Nothing more than that. In fact, we are going to the WhatsApp place. And there's nothing my friend Mike was talking about on devolution. Devolution is not a problem. The problem is the management of devolution. Devolution was meant to ensure that the services are down to the common man, okay? Something that we were highly delivered by the national government. Now, when it was brought down to the people, this is now what we talk about decentralization of services from one point to another. Now, the persons that failed us, and that's why I really hate these things of appointments in very key functions and very key offices. The CIC, the Constitutional Implementation Committee, that was chaired by one Nyachai, okay? Now, these people were tasked with the mandate to ensure that the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, was fully implemented. But they left the office when the Constitution was not even, let me say, 75% implemented. Now, this is now where the failure started. And that's why we have all these problems. County assemblies have failed to execute their roles and mandates.
Someone called Ibrahim Buana says, when you said you have just refreshed the cartels, he's saying that it takes a thief to catch a thief.
You see, what they are doing, and I've said this, and in one way, as much as you take a thief to catch a thief, but you take a thief also to protect another thief.
Okay, Mike has a point on that.
That is what is happening today.
I want you to give a chance to Mike.
Let me say something. Contrary to, probably I gave the wrong impression that I had issues with devolution. I'm a very firm believer in devolution, and I'm a very firm supporter of devolution, and I was one of its greatest supporters even at Bomas. My problem is that we did not work out the structures well, and that is why, as Liswa says, even the county assemblies have failed to do their mandate. They've turned into corruption dens themselves. They are pocketing money, and then they are shielding the executive that is also very corrupt at the county level.
And the BBI is going to us and now these things.
You see? Now let me just continue with mine. So, devolution is a very good thing. Actually, it is one of the best things that ever happened here, because at least now services were taken
It's
to the
only
people.
in the health sector that we are seeing failure.
But the failure in the health sector, I blame it at the national level.
Government.
Because national government refused to devolve health completely because of the big monies involved. They decided to retain the money in Afya House here so that they can do procurement from here. They pay KEMSA from here. They control the drugs from Nairobi. They control medical equipment from Nairobi. All that. That is why they refuse to devolve health. They ought to have devolved health. Because when we do things half-heartedly, like we did with devolving health, the country suffers because we don't know how to do accounting. Who do we hold to account? If health fails in the counties, do we hold the CS for health in Nairobi accountable, or the governor?
So because of that, that is why we are, even today as we are facing the coronavirus,
Yes.
You will see there is a gap.
A very big gap, because Mutahi Kagwe addresses us in Nairobi, but we have a problem in Bungoma or in Siaya, and he has no clue what's going on there.
Yeah, very true.
These are things we must confront.
There's a big mix-up there. So it means that the government should also up the game. But we are still in Nairobi. What do you think will happen now? Are we going to expect the beautiful Nairobi?
First, I sympathize with the Nairobi residents because they have not had a test of what devolution should have actually achieved for them. And it also applies in very many other counties across the county. Because you see, the plans that are being shared by the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, they are grandiose plans. I mean, they are plans that you cannot fail to support. I mean, if they're coming up with a modern commuter rail system, you know, all these things. These are things that are not new. These are things that cannot just be done by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. This is a plan that can actually be actualized by the Nairobi County government. If only we had a leader in the county of Nairobi. During the first term of devolution in Nairobi County, we had somebody who passed off as a leader, but he was pilfering funds more than he actually did anything close to leading the county. In the second one, we had somebody who passed off as somebody who was sane and was in his senses, yet it was a totally different case. So what should have happened was for the president not to interfere in the running. You remember there was a time the county assembly was planning to impeach Sonko. He ran to Upper Hill, then ran to State House, and that went down the drain. Right now, he's still governor, in as much as these functions are going to the national government. He's still governor. He's still drawing their salary from taxpayers. And all these people, the Nairobi County government is fully drawing salaries from the taxpayer. So what should have happened is we should have allowed the county assembly to take its course. They should have impeached this man. They should have they should have just taken him out of his misery, and Nairobi should have been given an opportunity to correct the mistakes it did in 2017 by electing a sane person into office.
I think on my side, I think the best thing for Nairobi, it needed dissolution. So that we have time, we go back, we elect these leaders from the MCA to the governor afresh.
Are you not worried that now KRA is taking the task of collecting revenue within Nairobi?
In one way, I'm worried because one, we don't know where these taxes are going to be channeled to, because this revenue that is always collected in Nairobi, it is meant to ensure that Nairobi gets its services. Now, when it goes straight to KRA, is it going to the national coffer? Then how are we going to trace this money? Who is going to tell us that the money that was collected from Nairobi County is this, and this is what has been used, this is what is going to be allocated to this and this? Now Nairobi County will be under the national government. Does it mean the budget, when it comes to time of budget, will Nairobi County be included in the budget allocation?
Someone said
that's
yesterday.
the question that we should also be asking ourselves.
Someone
now,
yesterday.
does it mean that the MCAs now have no roles in the county assembly, whereby the roles of oversight, who are they going to oversight in that county assembly? Because the CECs of health, of transport, and other the four functions, they are supposed also to be oversight. Okay, but what are these roles that the MCAs are going to perform for the next 2 years that we have?
If KRA is taking the task,
yes.
Are we going to expect a lot of corruption coming in?
No, I just want to look at the legal aspects of this transaction that happened yesterday between Eugene.
But before
and
that's the question I'm asking.
Yeah.
Are we going to expect a lot of corruption now coming in more than?
On my side, yes.
Me, I'm seeing a lot of impunity.
Yes.
Because to whom will this guy be answerable?
That's only the government.
Who will hold him accountable?
The president.
Will he be answerable to the MCAs? Can they ask him questions?
Yeah.
Can he appear before them? He cannot.
He can never. Because he's not answerable to them.
He's not answerable to them. So if children, let's say, God forbid, if little children who are born in Pumwani, if they start dying in a big number, and MCAs seek answers for this, they cannot summon the CEC for health.
They can never.
Because his functions were taken away. But again, so can they summon Mutai Kagwe?
They cannot.
Because he's now the CEC for health at the national level. Or can they summon this fellow?
Or if the doctors of Mbagathi, Pumwani go on strike, who will address these issues? So these are some of the things that we need to sit down and look into. Because we cannot just say, yes, Nairobi has been taken, but we should question ourselves. Now, when it comes to accountability and oversight.
But Philip seems to have a directive on law. But Mike, you said you have a law kind of perspective that you want to give concerning this appointment.
No. It is basically what we are trying to say here. Legally, what is the role of this guy? How can he be held to account? To whom is he answerable? Is he answerable to the appointing authority? What if he becomes a rogue and the appointing authority decides to ignore his roguishness? What is our remedy as citizens of this country?
I had the Attorney General when he was now commissioning the transfer, and he made a statement and said, following the agreement, the deed of transfer that had been signed by the governor and the cabinet secretary for devolution on behalf of the national government, and public participation. And I laughed because there is nothing even close to public participation that has been done on this thing.
Very true.
Nothing. You know, you would be forgiven to think that maybe if the county assembly had been involved, that is close to public participation. But not even that was done. So I still insist this transfer did not meet the constitutional threshold. So that makes it illegal. That is the beginning point. But now that we are here, I think the buck now stops with the citizens, the voters of Nairobi, because you elected a government and that government has been rendered impotent. What then should you do as voters? And one of the things that you need to do is to demand that these services are performed by the leaders that you elected. That is something that the voters of Nairobi really need to do. That demand that the government that you elected acts on these functions, because you know the functions that have been transferred to the national government are not just simple functions. They are what we call property-oriented functions. They are the most they are the major functions that you could call the artery of the functioning of the Nairobi
the
County
juicy
government.
part.
Yes, that is what has been transferred. So Nairobi County government has it has been left as a clerk, a mere secretary to devolution. That cannot happen. That should not happen.
Someone is saying, I agree with Philip, and I don't like the sound of that. Something is brewing. Something is cooked. So,
Yes.
tutarajie, maybe what I'm thinking also, maybe you're going to say no to this or yes. Are you thinking that during the next election, Nairobi County will not be a county?
That's another thing that we are trying to question ourselves wherever we are seated. What directions are we being taken to? What is there next for us? Because now, I want to look into one or two things. When you talk of transforming the transport system in Nairobi, it's something that has already been failed long time ago. When the president of France came to Kenya, that's 2 years back, they held a press conference at railways with the president of Kenya, trying to tell us how there'll be a commuter railway from JKIA to where to where. These things have not been materialized. Okay? Who should we question on this? Should we question the MCAs? Should we question the MP? Should we question the president? Okay? Because these are services that are supposed to be rendered to the Nairobians. Okay? To make effective transport within the city. Now, because there was a bilateral talk between the two presidents, there is no accountability. There is no way we can go and question this, because who do we question? Okay? Where is that document? When is this set to start? Okay? So these are some of the things that are going to make Nairobi fail, because, for example, when these bilateral talks were discussed for the sake of Nairobi, we don't know anything, okay? We are not aware of anything, and the other plans that are there, okay? So, when the metropolitan city is now being brought now to be managed the way with an appointee, this is the same thing that are going to happen. We are not going to have accountability. We are not going to question anything. Now, our powers are now with one person who is the president.
I'm taking
and
from
very
you
few individuals.
To Philip.
Yes, Cesar has raised a very important issue that given the placement of Nairobi City, the Nairobi County within the country, Nairobi as the capital city of the country, it is a unique placement, and no wonder the president is mentioning that it's an international hub, the seat of government, and all those things. But we have a culture of treating a limb that has gangrene, acute gangrene, with bandages. That has been our culture. We are treating symptoms rather than the ailment. We are treating we have a culture of misdiagnosing our problems. That could be solved simply by having a simple committee that would interface between the Nairobi County government and the national government. Like what Cyrus is talking about, the agreement that the country had entered with France. That is a simple thing that should have been solved by there being an interface between the national government and the Nairobi County government without changing the structure of government. And it is important also that Cyrus has mentioned that we are being forced into a certain direction. That after the BBI, and I highly suspect, though I doubt that there is any Nairobi citizen, Nairobi voter who has given a recommendation to the BBI task force that Nairobi County should become a metropolitan. I doubt that there is anyone.
And if there is, no one is hearing.
Yes, I suspect that politicians have given that recommendation. The national government, of course, is driving the agenda. And so it is in their best interest to transform Nairobi County government into a metropolitan, away from citizen participation, away from citizen accountability. So we can solve this issue by having an interface between Nairobi County government and the national government. If that interface is the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, then so be it. But you cannot transfer the Nairobi County government functions to the Nairobi Metropolitan Service and call Nairobi County government fully a government and this Nairobi Metropolitan Services as conducting affairs of the county.
Mike, before nikuje kwako, I know you have a point. Mpenzi mtazamaji, unaendelea kutazama runingi ya TV47, uko na mimi Emmanuel Terrell. Bila shaka tunachanganua masuala ya magazeti, na kama una maoni yoyote kuhusiana na jinsi ambavyo serikali inaendesha shughuli zake, haswa kuchukua masuala kutoka katika serikali ya kaunti ya Nairobi, penzi mtazamaji, huenda ikawa inazamisha sana kaunti ya Nairobi. Lakini kuna swala moja vile vile nasoma kupitia Twitter, anaitwa David Masinde Lianda, anasema at David Masinde Lia, anasema gava ifutilie interest kwa loans kwa muda, vile vile biashara iendelee kwa masharti. Na jamaa moja anaitwa Ibrahim Bwana anamtakia kile laheri Corazon, so wakati huu misuli yake inauma kwa sababu ya kwenda gym.
Corazon.
Ama ni umesema Bagadi kulikuwa na point yako kabla tukamilishe masuala ya magazeti kuhusiana na Nairobi sasa hivi.
Wacha niseme hivi. Waswahili kama wewe mnapenda kusema ya kwamba ukiona mwenzio akinyolewa akutia maji. What will stop the current system from twisting other governors to hand over such lucrative functions?
It's the same question I've been
going
asking.
forward.
Yes.
It has started.
Yes.
And the people are quiet.
Are we going back to one central government?
That's exactly where we are heading, in my opinion. Because now, the next thing you'll hear is that they'll just pull out your file and tell you, Litswa, now you know you are the governor of Mombasa, and these are the options. We deal with you, or will you give us these functions? Mm-hmm. You will see a roller coaster of governors now.
What is it that they are going to benefit from?
Listen, I have a copy of the president's speech yesterday, mm-hmm. and he hinted at something here which is very important. He said that, you know, Nairobi produces 40% of the GDP, mm-hmm. and therefore
it is written here.
Yeah, it cannot just be left like that.
Mm-hmm. So it means there's something that they are going to benefit from when they take the leadership of Nairobi.
Of course. Mm-hmm. You see, when now they are collecting revenue, and just like Litswa, my brother here, said, we are not very clear about how this money will be accounted for. If it is collected by the central government, who will account for it? Mm-hmm. You get? When things are very hazy and they are unclear as they are now, that is already a very fertile opportunity for creating corruption around these funds, mm-hmm. and stealing. I'm not calling anybody a thief, but I'm only saying that you are creating opportunities for theft of public funds. But my worry is from what has happened now. What will stop them from taking over similar functions in Bungoma or in Kisumu?
Nothing. They are only waiting for that nice time, yes. And they pick this. Now, someone is saying, Gashukiwa Magari, that the panelists should stop thinking that the nation is run like a homestead. They are completely out of touch.
But that is what is happening. Mm-hmm. The nation is being, the government is being run. In fact, thank you for mentioning that it's being run like a homestead. where there are unilateral decisions and no one should question. If you question, then you risk being disowned by the head of the home state, and that is what is happening. If you question the head of state today, like most of us are doing, we risk something happening to us because we are speaking things that are not palatable to the current leadership. That is what is happening. So we are completely in touch with reality, and the reality is that people are actually it's actually people who are getting disconnected from the leadership, and vice versa. That is the reality. I think he's also living out of touch with the reality.
He's the one who's out of reality.
No, but the viewers should do is read and understand the Constitution very well. One, and then also try to do comparisons. Let him go back to history and look at other countries, okay, the way they are managed, and let him understand the essence of devolution. Because then another thing is on the viewer who talked about the things of loans, and then it's something that I've seen the banks have talked about, that they're going to extend the period. And when they extend the period, the interest will remain the same, which means they are not going to punish the normal citizen, which is good. And then also another thing that has raised my eyebrows is that our government is going to be auctioned if we are not very keen.
So this
Senator Ledama Olekina, once in the floor of the House and Senate, said that the Chinese, we took a loan and gave JKI as a collateral and the Port of Mombasa as a collateral. The Fox News at the time has highlighted very clearly that the Port of Mombasa very soon will be losing it to the Chinese. These are some of the things that we as Kenyans should sit down and look into. How are we going to pay these loans? Now, we have coronavirus all over. I think the government of Kenya should now discuss with China to give an extension of this loan, because we are going to lose a lot of our assets.
Edgar Goske said something that we are supposed to place China under receivership because of coronavirus, if it really came from there.
Yeah, it came from, but it is true. The sources are that it came from there. And it started in January. Mark you.
So is it really nice placing them under receivership? Or
how do you place a country under receivership? Maybe I would want to understand.
Emmanuel, let me say this before. Philip will tell us more how to place a country under receivership. But I want to talk about that. David Masinde
is saying
Leanda.
Yes.
Gavai ifutilie interest kwa loans kwa muda, vile biashara iendelee kwa masharti. Na ningependa kusema hivi. Yesterday the governor of the central bank discussed loans that are due to banks. But I want to bring it to his attention that many Kenyans now get their loans from Tala, Branch,
Copper,
even
Mshwari, KCB loan. There are so many apps.
You see those? Even Fuliza. I think the governor should address these ones. These are the guys who should be told to suspend their interests, because these are the loans which are available to the most basic citizen, the most ordinary guy. Because getting a loan from a bank means going with collateral, a title deed, logbook, and people don't have those things. But you know, for they are called what? The online lending systems. They don't need all those things.
Just need your data.
They just need your data, and then they give you money, and then you promise to pay.
And also, I believe they have a lot of trust.
Yeah, they trust, and then if you don't pay, they really harass you. They can call you 10 times a day and send you 100 SMSs. But these are the people who are dealing with ordinary Kenyans. These are the guys who should be addressed by the governor of the central bank. If he can address that aspect, many people will get. He will be touching the lives of very many people in Kenya. And that's my take.
And also to add something on that, on the banking sector. The banking sector the central bank should also look on how to manage this mobile or online money lending system. Because now they are just free and controllable. These are some of the things also the parliament should look into. How are they going to ensure that the central bank also manages these online money lenders, so that they should not come and, they are so good, they are so enticing. So every Kenyan will like to go to it. But there's many risks. You'll take a loan, you'll fail to pay within that period, you are taken to CRB.
No,
Very big problem.
Big risk.
Yes.
I guess this one goes to Philip, because they used this same guy, anaitwa Gashukiwa Magari, ameongea kuhusu running the government like a homestead. Now he's back and saying, ask if they know the recommendations of BBI Vomas report in regard to cities.
Well, we know those recommendations, and I think we must state that we are speaking from a point of knowledge, and it is also important to synthesize knowledge into wisdom. Yes. And I think that is what we are doing. We know those recommendations, and the fact that we are speaking the way we are means that we do not agree with those recommendations. And personally, and I think I've said this before, that some of those recommendations were not coached from reality. They should have taken a bottom-up approach. We do not begin from a lofty point, and especially a point of, and Mike has mentioned this, that there's a lot of copy-pasting that is going around. And we have a law on cities and urban planning. We have an act that governs what amounts to a city, what consideration should be looked at. So that we understand. We know what recommendations are in that BBI report, and this is the message for Kenyans. The BBI report was not meant for our wholesome consumption. It was for regurgitation. We're supposed to look at the report and talk about it, discuss whether those recommendations have anything to do with the reality, whether we should pick them on or not. But I still maintain that I do not agree with them. But what you're talking about debt, a friend of mine called Mabuti Mtua, he's undertaking his master's in law at New York University, recently shared some startling information. And he came across what is called the Bloomberg terminal, where it's sort of a market and financial board and graph that displays a lot of information about countries and about their sovereign debts, and especially sovereign bonds. And he mentioned this, that Kenya's placement on that graph is very dangerous, because we have loans that are up to with up to 7% annual interest, Eurobonds that will take us up to 2048 and beyond. Our debt curve is very steep. That is what should worry us as Kenyans. Yes. And it is unfortunate that this information is only shared at the executive level, at the national government level. It does not cascade down to common mwananchi, because the citizen wants to know, what does this agreement between my country and the next mean for me? What does the SGR mean for me? Is it just that it will reduce time between Nairobi and Mombasa, and I will pay less to travel to Mombasa and wherever? It means something beyond that, and that is what the government, and you mentioned the opposition when we were beginning. That is something that they should have. They had begun doing that, but along the way they got carried away with the current, and they no longer do what they're supposed to do. Parliament and Senate should have been doing these things, but again they have been rendered impotent. They're just there to earn our money for nothing. They should be serving the interests and protecting the interests of the citizenry. Because if we get to a point where, as Lisa is talking, where we are now auctionable as a country, it will be a point of no return.
Asante sana.
And that still goes back to the same voter. When it comes to the time of election, elect credible leaders. Don't elect sycophants. Just because somebody is saying, oh, Huru, or somebody is saying, oh, Baba, or somebody is saying, oh, Ruto. Don't elect somebody because he's a sycophant. Elect somebody who is a diligent, who is a debater, who will go to that legislative house and debate your issues and ensure that services are trickled down to you. and ensure that he's watching the government, he's oversetting that government, is not compromised at any point. We need people like Martin Shukuk, we need people like Kinawamari, we need those, the house that was there before.
No. Asante sana Leto, asante sana Mike, asante sana Philip. Kuna bingwa moja naitwa Ibrahim Bwana amerudi tena. If I was a politician, this is a red flag and I'm going to distance myself from the president. Naamini kwamba inahusiana na masuala ya kaunti ya Nairobi. Asante sana mpenzi mtazamaji kwa kusalia nasi, kutuandikia hapa kupitia Facebook, vile vile kuchangia na kufuatilia kwa kina kuhusiana na masuala ya magazeti ya asubuhi ya leo. Nashukuru sana. Vile vile kuna harafa watu wametuma na sema asante. Naendelea kutazama runinga TV47 uko na mimi Emmanuel Terer. Bila shaka tunakwenda katika mapumziko. So if mpenzi mtazamaji, asante sana kwa kuendelea kutazama runinga ya TV47. Kuna uchanganuzi mkubwa unaendelea nyuma ya kamera, na Philip Wangale anasema kitu kimoja, kama kwamba Wakenya walikuwa wanatarajia kwamba Nairobi County inaendelea, imekwisha zama. La mwisho kabisa nawapatia nafasi useme ya mwisho kisha tukamilishe hii.
There are three things that I would want to urge the government to, whoever in government is listening to this, and the county governments. Three things that need to be done, and experts will advise more on this. We need to block the inflow of more risk factors into the country. It is good that the government gave a ban on airplanes and stuff like that, but we need to do more. We also need to increase our diagnostic capacities. Counties need to be given the capacity to do diagnosis. And the other thing is we also need to mitigate against the economic downfall as we handle this. This is the final thing I would say. Some people think that us resorting to prayer is something that is intellectual, lazy, or illogical. But I want to tell Kenyans that when all fails, and it has proved elsewhere that even science can fail us, it is only God that can rescue us out of this. So I support the president's call to have Saturday tomorrow as is it tomorrow? Tomorrow is Friday. On Saturday, as a national prayer day. But I would want to urge everyone and especially Christians, because that is my orientation, across the country, to fast and pray for this nation, because without God we will not make it.
Yes, that's the point. Also on that, Mike.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I want to say this. Three things. One, let's ease the economic stress on our people by doing the following. Let the government institute more comprehensive financial stimulus packages for the people, the citizens, not only for business but for every citizen of this country. Two, let government provide greater incentives for food producers and importers, because remember, the locusts have just done their bit before the harvesting period, and we are heading towards the harvesting period. There is no food. Then Corona has come. Our people are not involved in production because there is going to be a lockdown. So there should be more incentives on to food importers so that we have enough food before we reach that crisis level. Thirdly, is that the government should concentrate on enhancing the capacity of our medical infrastructure. Make sure our doctors, our medical personnel are well remunerated. Our hospitals are well stocked with drugs and medical equipment. Then at least we shall have helped something. But finally, let the people go back to basic public health lessons and personal hygiene issues. It all starts with the individual.
No.
Thank you.
Kusema kweli ndio hiyo. Sasa kabla nikuja kwao, because I want to read this one. Philip said that he is into Christianity. So
not that I'm into Christianity, I'm a Christian.
Okay. So being into Christianity,
I'm into it, then it means I can opt out anytime.
But it depends with one thing. Wewe unaweza ona dhambi mahali na useme I want to leave Christianity kidogo alafu nirudi. That's what happens. Okay.
That is not what happens.
Okay. The Bible says in the book of 2 Chronicles 7:13-14, when I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, of course mvua inaonekana kumaanisha kuna dalili nzuri, or command locusts to devour the land, ambayo umesema saa hii imefanya shughuli yake, I'll send plague among my people. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from the wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and I will heal their land.
Amen. Now, I wanted to say this, that I've raised concerns on Kenya being auctioned and other things, and I've called on Kenyans. When it comes to election, they should elect credible leaders. Leaders who have that...
That is the first stealing of the land.
Yes, leaders who have that heart to serve and not to steal. Let us not have the same mistake of the same electing the same people like who have just made this country go into become a looting den. Now, as Parliament is seeking powers, as per the Business Daily, as Parliament is seeking powers for state loan approvals, this will be a good thing, but only with sober parliamentarians, not compromised parliamentarians.
They should be sober.
They should be very sober. Sober at heart, sober at mind, and sober in whatever they do.
Now, talk about the natakupatia chance. There's someone who is watching and expecting something from you kulingana na COVID-19.
COVID-19, as Mike has said, it is just self-discipline. Let us take those precautions. Hiyo kunawa mkono, hiyo kukaa mbali kidogo. Fine. Then also let us put our trust in God, because when it has failed, it has failed. The only person who can rescue us is God. So let us put that trust in God. And for the prayer thing, is a good thing. Even Trump did it on 15th. He had that national prayer with the Americans. So let us all just look upon the Lord.
Asante sana mpenzi mtazamaji, kutoka kwake Philip Mwangale na vile vile Michael Leo na vile vile Litswa. Cyrus Litswa. Nimejaribu sana kutamka la tatu. Asante sana kwa kuchangia, kutazama vile vile na kufuatilia runinga ya TV47. Uko na mimi Emmanuel Terer, na shukuru sana, lakini tukamilishe hapo kwa sababu ya kitengo kingine kinakuja baada ya hapo.
Mike,